For centuries, humanity has told stories about impossible creatures. Beings that appear in legends, ancient paintings, and tales passed down from generation to generation. But an unsettling question arises. What if many of those creatures were not simple inventions? What if they were actually distorted memories of animals that truly existed? Stay until the end, because today we are going to discover how modern science has begun to uncover the truth behind some of the most famous myths in history. 7. Unicorns, the forgotten titan of the Ice Age. When we hear the word unicorn, we think of elegant and magical creatures. But the origin of this myth is far older, wilder, and more real. In the Indus Valley region, thousands of years ago, civilizations engraved on small stone seals the image of a bulky animal with a single horn. It had no wings or ethereal appearance. It was strong, heavy, and clearly real. For centuries, historians debated its meaning, but paleontology offered a definitive answer. During the Ice Age, an animal called Elasmotherium dominated the Eurasian steppes. It was a giant rhinoceros, larger than any modern rhino, with a frontal horn that could reach the height of an adult human. That horn was not decorative, it was a weapon. Our ancestors lived alongside this beast. They hunted it, they feared it, and ultimately, they drove it to extinction. Climate change weakened its populations, but it was human expansion that delivered the final blow. When Elasmotherium disappeared, it did not vanish from collective memory. Its image softened, was idealized, and over time, it transformed into the unicorn of fairy tales. It was not magic. It was a memory. 6. Dwarves, the humans history chose to forget. Legends of dwarves appear in almost every culture. Small, intelligent, skilled, resilient beings who live in isolated places. For centuries, they were thought to be pure invention. But modern science discovered something that completely changed that view. Approximately 50,000 years ago, a tiny human species called Homo floresiensis lived on a remote island in Indonesia. They stood just over 1 meter tall, had small brains and compact bodies. Because of their size, scientists nicknamed them hobbits. But they were not caricatures. They were real humans, capable of making tools and adapting to an extremely hostile environment. They shared their territory with giant predators such as Komodo dragons. Survival required intelligence, cooperation, and adaptation. Their small size was not a flaw, but an evolutionary advantage. When larger humans arrived on the island, isolation and scarce resources triggered a process known as island dwarfism, a survival strategy documented in many species. When Homo floresiensis disappeared, they left no written legends, but they left traces in the human imagination. Perhaps the dwarves of myth were not magical beings, but other humans, just as real as we are. 5. Yeti and Bigfoot, the uncomfortable mirror of our evolution. In the Himalayas and the forests of North America, an unsettlingly similar figure appears, a large, hairy creature that walks upright. Too human to be an animal. Too animal to be human. In 1951, climbers near Everest found giant footprints in the snow. For decades, they were attributed to the Yeti. In 2017, DNA tests showed that many belonged to rare Himalayan bears. However, that does not explain all the testimonies. In 1967, a famous recording showed a hairy figure walking with a surprisingly human posture. For years, it was ridiculed. But in 2022, when analyzed with modern technology, some experts pointed out that the supposed costume does not match any known human material from that era. This is where evolution comes in. We know we were not alone. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other hominids coexisted with us. 3.7 million years ago, species such as Australopithecus already walked upright, although they were small and had simple brains. Could Bigfoot stories be distant memories of encounters with other hominids? Science does not claim it, but it does not completely rule it out either. 4. The Loch Ness Monster, the fossil that never stopped moving. For more than 1,500 years, Loch Ness has been the setting for one of the greatest mysteries of modern history. This Scottish lake is not a simple body of water. It is deep, dark, cold, and has extremely low visibility. In some areas, it reaches more than 230 meters in depth, making it an ideal place for anything large to hide unseen for long periods of time. Accounts of Nessie almost always describe the same thing: a massive body, a long neck emerging from the water, and one or more humps sliding slowly across the surface. These descriptions repeat from medieval chronicles to 21st century testimonies, which is unsettling due to their consistency over time. Despite multiple explorations with sonar, submarines, and high-tech cameras, no conclusive evidence of an unknown animal has been found. For this reason, most scientists believe Nessie is the result of optical illusions, floating logs, water waves, or even deliberate hoaxes. However, here is a fascinating fact. Millions of years ago, a marine reptile called the plesiosaur existed. It was not a dinosaur, but it lived in the same era. It had 4 large flippers, a robust body, and an extremely long neck, a silhouette strikingly similar to that of Nessie. It dominated the oceans for more than 150 million years, far longer than humans have existed on Earth. When the plesiosaur went extinct during the Great Extinction at the end of the Cretaceous, it left gigantic fossils scattered around the world. Many historians believe ancient inhabitants may have found these remains and, without understanding their origin, imagined that the creature was still alive in the depths of the lake. Thus, a misinterpreted fossil could have transformed into a living legend that has survived for centuries. Nessie, then, would not be a living animal, but the lingering shadow of a prehistoric predator. 3. Giant serpents. The oldest fear turned into reality. Colossal snakes appear in virtually every mythology on the planet. In Australia, Yurlungur is a world-creating serpent. In India, Vasuki is a serpent god who holds the cosmos. In South America and Africa, stories speak of snakes capable of swallowing entire animals, or even people. For centuries, these tales were thought to be exaggerations born from human fear of reptiles. But paleontology proved something unsettling. Giant snakes were not a myth. The most famous is Titanoboa, discovered in Colombia. It measured more than 13 meters, about the length of a city bus, and weighed over a ton. It lived in tropical swamps after the extinction of the dinosaurs. It had no venom. It did not need it. It killed its prey by slowly crushing them with brutal force, easily breaking bones. But Titanoboa was not the only one. In India, Vasuki indicus was discovered, an even longer snake, close to 15 meters. Scientists chose that name precisely because it perfectly matched ancient Hindu legends. It was not a coincidence, but an acknowledgement that myths may have arisen from real encounters with these creatures. An interesting fact is that modern snakes are much smaller because today's climate does not allow bodies of such size. Giant snakes required extremely high temperatures to maintain their metabolism. That means that when they existed, the world was a far more hostile place for humans. Our fear of snakes is not cultural. It is evolutionary. Because for thousands of years, creatures like these truly existed. 2. Dragons. When the sky had real owners. Dragons are perhaps the most universal mythical creatures. They appear in Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas, often without contact between cultures. In Asia, they are described as wise beings, without wings, capable of flying and controlling the weather. In Europe, they are winged, aggressive beasts associated with fire and destruction. For a long time, it was thought these stories simply arose from finding large bones and misinterpreting them. But the reality is that the skies of the past were dominated by creatures that would have looked like true dragons to human eyes. One of the most impressive examples is Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying animal ever known. This reptile not only had a wingspan of over 10 meters, larger than a school bus, but was also as tall as a giraffe when standing. Its size meant that even walking next to one would have been a terrifying experience. Unlike birds, Quetzalcoatlus did not flap its wings constantly. It launched itself from the ground with enormous force and then glided long distances, taking advantage of air currents. Some scientists believe it also hunted on land, using its long beak to catch small prey, such as baby dinosaurs. Watching a creature like this take flight would have seemed almost divine to primitive humans. It is not hard to imagine how, centuries later, that memory transformed into stories of dragons ruling the sky. When the asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs, these winged giants disappeared as well, but their image was forever etched into the human imagination. 1. Cthulhu. The abyss we still do not understand. Cthulhu is a modern literary creation, born in 1928 as a cosmic entity that dwells in the depths of the ocean. But the terror it inspires does not come from nowhere. It comes from a real fact. The oceans have been home to genuine monsters. One of them was Tusoteuthis, a prehistoric squid that could reach 12 meters in length. It had a rigid internal structure called a gladius, far more developed than that of modern squids, giving it superior speed and endurance. It was an active predator, capable of hunting giant fish and even attacking young marine reptiles. Unlike modern squids, Tusoteuthis was better adapted for aggressive hunting. Its hook-armed tentacles and enormous size made it a true nightmare of prehistoric seas. What is most unsettling is that we have explored only about 5% of today's ocean. The rest remains an unknown, dark, and hostile world, where pressure, cold, and lack of light make constant exploration impossible. Cthulhu may be fiction, but the ocean has already been home to real horrors. And if such creatures existed before, the real question is not whether there are monsters in the sea, but whether we are prepared to find them. Extinction erases bodies, but it does not erase memories. Myths are cultural fossils, fragments of truth distorted by time. Perhaps monsters were never fantasy. Perhaps they were real animals, too extraordinary to be forgotten. And the real question is not what existed, but what we have yet to discover.